Well, while waiting for people to get here in the first 10 minutes, might as well talk about some news articles. This one is pretty scary, and I've seen several articles like this. Uh, this goes back decades, back to when I was doing medical research myself. There are people who put up fake medical data for research and now clinical trials. You know, the American Medical Association and the accrediting agencies that let you sell drugs require you to do clinical trials, and people just make up or alter the data. And there's evidence here that a lot of them show fake data, like up to 25% of them, which makes a lot of sense because there's a huge incentive to do this, to pass the test. So people just modify the data, and so it sounds pretty bad, and suggests that we're going to have some system of auditing and checking these clinical trials. So Apple, as you know, I think it seems like they make a lot of their money selling chargers. Every Apple device changes the charger to a new one. You have to buy a new one. It'll drive you nuts. So in order to resist this, Europe passed a law that everything must charge with USB-C. So now Apple has made a proprietary USB-C, where you have to get the special Apple version of USB-C. So they managed to apparently comply with the letter of law while defeating its intent, which is very much what you'd expect Apple to do, so they can continue to sell expensive charging hardware to everybody. RFK Jr. Is the Democrats' answer to Donald Trump. He's just full of conspiracy theories. He thinks 5G is activating vaccines in your body to take over your mind, and he blames all kinds of racists and conspiracy theories. Basically the same thing as Donald Trump, and is attracting a lot of attention just because of his name. His whole family is pretty much disavowed him and said they don't want anybody voting for him. They think he's just a dangerous lunatic. He's not considered a representative of the good part of the Kennedy line, but anyway, he's one of the spoiler candidates that may suck away votes from Biden enough to put Trump in, so we'll see how that works. But he lies all the time, just like Trump. He'll say something outrageously racist or obviously wrong, and then a few minutes later he'll just deny that he said it, just like Trump. So, anyway, we'll see how far he gets. He was a heroin addict. That may possibly explain his mental derangement, but I doubt it. Anyway, here's an interesting article from a guy that tried to see what social media did for him, and I think people are increasingly coming to the conclusion that social media is unhealthy for people. And his point here, this guy deliberately tried joining social media, following as many people as possible, filling his mind with all the information from all those people, thinking that that would be good for him, and he decided it in fact was bad for him, and much better when he knocked it off. And his argument, which is interesting, although not scientific proof, is that people evolved to live in sort of a tribe with maybe 100 or 200 people, and you really shouldn't be having frequent discussions with more than that, or it'll just sort of drive you nuts, which sounds kind of true. Anyway, this I think is closely related to the big issue that's getting a lot of attention now, which is the mental health of our young children. Teenagers are much less mentally healthy than they used to be by many measures. A large number of young girls have attempted suicide or are self-harming. And apparently they're very unhealthy, and this seems to coincide with the rise of social media. So a common explanation of this is that they spend all their time on their phones in social media instead of having real friends in the real world, and it's not an effective substitute. That somehow they really need that social interaction to grow up properly, and I think that's probably true. That's why in the long run it might be a good thing that Elon Musk destroyed Twitter. Mastodon is very different than Twitter. Twitter was a constant flood of information of all types from all kinds of people. Mastodon is just a professional tool with nothing but information security news and a much smaller number of people and a much smaller number of posts. It's much more like just sort of being in a club of professionals in this field than somehow being connected to some vast, noisy community with lots of chaos flying by all the time. So a lot of people apparently TikTok, I've never used TikTok, but apparently TikTok always modifies your face to make you more beautiful. which is probably, and so people present a ridiculous, cartoonish, exaggerated version of themselves on TikTok, which is why everybody looks beautiful. And now they're moving to fully AI-generated influencers. This apparently is a career a lot of young people want, where you just become an influencer, you just are on YouTube or something, and you just convince people to buy products. So a way of sort of becoming a celebrity without bothering to have any accomplishment first. Anyway, now they're making completely AI-generated influencers. These people don't exist at all. They are not enhanced versions of a real person. They're just totally fake, and they admit it in their profile. I'm AI-generated, but then they try to convince you to buy things. And this is interesting. It may be successful, and I think this is essentially what Hollywood wants to go to. This is why there's the huge actors strike. The Hollywood wants to switch to AI-generated versions of actors so they don't have to pay for real actors. And we'll see if people will accept this and if it works. So there's two related stories here. Probably start with this one. So the Supreme Court's ProPublica in particular has really done a lot of revealing how completely corrupt the current Supreme Court is. The justices have just been taking ridiculous bribes from right-wing people for decades, who then appear in their court and they push their agenda, and this is how we ended up ending Roe versus Wade in America, and many other cases are coming, like ending gun control and many other things. So the far alt-right crazy stuff is getting their way by bribing the Supreme Court into doing it. This is totally coming out, and there seems to be nothing at all we can do about it. And it's such a scandal that even Republican voters no longer like what the Supreme Court is doing. And for that matter, Republican voters don't much like these extreme alt-right positions. Republican voters need abortions too. Anyway, but a small number of mega donors who push this extreme far-right stuff for some reason of their own, probably to serve as cloud cover for just lowering taxes and giving them ways to just steal more money, have pushed it. And anyway, so there is a problem, legitimacy problem at the Supreme Court, and this raises an issue in the American system. The Supreme Court is supposed to be the final arbiter of legality, but they do not have any ability to enforce their decisions. Andrew Jackson famously just ignored Supreme Court decisions, and nothing happened to stop him. And now Alabama is doing the same thing. Alabama has gerrymandered their state to deny their black members the vote, essentially, which is a big issue. We're still fighting. This is what most of the southern states want to do in America. They want black people not to be allowed to vote. And when they do allow them to vote, they try to make it more difficult. They arrange so that there's not enough voting booths, so that there's huge lines. They pass restrictions so they cannot vote on days they'd like to vote, like Sunday. They move them into, arrange the districts so there's never enough black people to win any elections, and that's what they've done in Alabama. And it's so bad that even this Supreme Court, which has pretty much nullified the Voting Rights Act, what little Voting Rights Act is left, they said you're violating it, and ordered Alabama to include another district, and they've just ignored it and not done it. So they are again testing to see, how about we just ignore what the Supreme Court says? What will happen? And we're going to see what happens. And I don't know what's going to happen in our system. In practice, it's very far from clear that the Supreme Court can in fact force you to obey them. And we will find out. Black Hat, the expensive, fancy security conference in Las Vegas that runs at the same time as DEF CON, which is the inexpensive hacker one, comparatively inexpensive, is now going to offer a pen test certification through Black Hat. Black Hat certified pen tester. This is new. They're giving the tests at this year's Black Hat, and so I don't know how much people will want this. I know the Black Hat trainings can be very good. I've taught there a few times, and I saw the other people training there are mostly the security celebrities that write textbooks and stuff, and a lot of the classes are very good, so this might be very good. It's an interesting new area for them to go. This has been getting a lot of attention on its information security mastodon. I find it difficult to understand, but apparently the idea here is that you can verify who is viewing your web page and only serve your web page to people who meet your criteria. And the idea is this will be like digital rights management. You somehow make sure that they're not pirating your content. And so the privacy-oriented people are completely freaking out, saying this would destroy the internet, and so on. There are a ton of people madder than anything on the issues page. Violates Yahweh's terms of service. It's unnecessary, absolutely unethical, and against the open web. And a lot of security celebrities are saying the same thing. This is terrible. I had trouble understanding it. But anyway, they're reacting as if it's like another idea that comes by many times. Something Putin said is you shouldn't let anybody use the internet without putting their real name on it. This is what Facebook says. Everybody has to constantly tell you who they really are at all times, and then you can know who's pirating things and who's saying bad things. And they say this would end abuse, bullying, spam, piracy, and all that, and also privacy. So they're reacting as if it's equal to that. I'm not sure it's exactly equal to that, but anyway, it's a thing to be aware of. People are taking it seriously. And the last one, which I at the right time here, there's an app called Remini, which lets you take a professional headshot out of a casual picture that you might have. This is actually a pretty big problem. I don't have much of a professional headshot. If you want to get jobs in corporations or something, you have to get a professional headshot, and those are kind of expensive and hard to get. And this will make an AI headshot out of your casual snaps. So that's turning out to be very popular. Of course, being AI, it will just try to turn you into like the way it expects a person to look. So people are complaining that it turns you into like a classically pretty woman. If you're a woman, it makes you skinnier and gives you a breast job to make your breasts bigger, because of course it's AI. It's not really duplicating your picture. It's looking up some online repository of the way it thinks you want to look and moving you in that direction. So that it's sort of like an artistic, cartoonish rendering in some regard. But anyway, it's pretty popular. So I'm going to stop the news.